filmé en direct.
The beginning of 2026 was marked by a series of severe climate shocks. Frosts, snowstorms, hurricanes, and floods struck countries across the globe. Extreme events followed one after another, leaving destruction and casualties in their wake. The usual patterns no longer apply, and this edition will show how normal weather conditions can turn into emergencies in a very short time. Russia. This winter in Kamchatka has been one of the harshest in decades, turning into a prolonged snow blockade. As early as December 2025, anomalies were observed. In the city of Petropavlovsk-Kamchatsky, more than 3 times the monthly average of precipitation fell within a single month. In January 2026, the snowfalls intensified even further. Starting on the 13th, the region's capital received, over just 4 days, a volume of precipitation exceeding the entire monthly average. At the Petropavlovsk-Kamchatsky weather station, the snow cover reached 171 centimeters, while in some parts of the city and its suburbs, snowdrifts exceeded 2.5 meters. Even from space, Petropavlovsk-Kamchatsky appeared almost completely buried under snow. Such a snowy winter has not been recorded in the region for more than 50 years. The storm brought strong winds with gusts exceeding 100 kilometers per hour, causing snow to form dense dunes around buildings, sometimes reaching the height of several stories. People had to go outside by literally jumping into the drifts, and snow forced open doors and windows on the lower floors. Roads were buried under snow, schools were closed, and public transport was halted. The city's infrastructure was in a state of collapse. Local residents noted that weather forecasts had not predicted a storm of this scale. Expecting it to last only a few hours or to cause merely a short work disruption, many were trapped in their homes for 5 days without sufficient food supplies.
С подъезда не выбраться.
Мне надо туда. Прохода нет. С подъезда выйти не могу.
Охренеть!
Power outages occurred in some areas. Buildings in private neighborhoods where heating depends on electricity cooled down within just a few hours. 2 elderly men died as a result of snow sliding off roofs. One was dug out alive, but due to uncleared streets, the ambulance could not arrive in time. Following this, a state of emergency was declared in the city and an avalanche warning was issued. Rescuers were physically unable to respond to all calls. People banded together to help each other, digging out homes, assisting elderly neighbors, and taking them to doctors. Residents note that only after the city is fully cleared will it be possible to know how many isolated elderly people did not survive this snowy week.
Как мне идет? Поземка. Вон, смотри.
Europe.
Ah, ils enculent les bagnoles!
On January 6th, Europe was hit by severe winter weather. In France, icy roads and heavy snowfall caused a series of major accidents, resulting in 5 fatalities. In the Netherlands, more than 1,000 KLM flights were cancelled due to a shortage of de-icing fluid for aircraft, causing transport chaos and hours-long lines at terminals. The combination of heavy snow and intense rainfall triggered floods and power outages in the Balkans. In Sarajevo, the capital of Bosnia and Herzegovina, nearly 40 centimeters of snow were recorded, and the weight of it caused many trees to fall. Strong winds with gusts up to 144 kilometers per hour were reported in Croatia. In the United Kingdom, temperatures dropped to minus 12.5 degrees Celsius, leading to the closure of hundreds of schools and disruptions to both rail and road transport. In northern Italy, frosts were observed, and several cities on the plains, including Bologna, experienced snowfall. In Rome, heavy rainfall caused the Tiber River to rise and trees to fall in city parks due to waterlogged soil. In Spain, snow and cold weather led to the suspension of a suburban railway line near Madrid and caused disruptions on more than 40 roads. A winter storm in northwestern Greece was accompanied by a destructive tornado. Dozens of trees were uprooted, a poultry farm was destroyed, killing around 30,000 chickens, and a military base also sustained damage. Starting January 8th, Europe was hit by the powerful storm Goretti. France was the hardest hit. In the town of Barfleur, wind gusts reached 213 kilometers per hour. Around 380,000 homes lost power, thousands of trees were uprooted, and coastal towns, including Etretat and Fécamp, were flooded. The port of Dieppe had to be closed due to storm surges. Mass casualties were avoided because the storm struck late at night when most people were at home. Goretti brought wind gusts of up to 160 kilometers per hour to the United Kingdom. As a result, 57,000 homes were left without electricity. On the island of St. Michael's Mount, nearly 80% of the trees were knocked down. Train services were suspended, and around 70 flights at Heathrow Airport were cancelled. One person was killed when a tree fell on their camper van. The winter storm also hit Germany, paralyzing the country with heavy snowfalls and blizzards. In the north of the country, intercity rail services came to a complete halt, and Hanover, a major transport hub, was blocked. Multi-kilometer traffic jams formed due to trucks stuck on the roads. In Bavaria, 3 people died in accidents on slippery roads. The storm also forced the closure of the Volkswagen plant in Emden. Hospitals, especially in Hamburg, saw a sharp increase in patients with injuries. In Belgium, the storm prompted a surge of emergency calls due to fallen trees, with wind speeds reaching 100 kilometers per hour.
Like, why aren't the plows?
In Serbia, parts of the country remained without electricity for several days. In Hungary, temperatures in one mountain valley dropped to nearly minus 33 degrees Celsius. Snow paralyzed traffic in Prague, the capital of the Czech Republic. And in Romania, around 4,000 homes were left without power. In the municipality of Alexandroupoli, on January 10th, a powerful squall hit with the arrival of a thunderstorm front from the Aegean Sea, with wind speeds reaching 154.5 kilometers per hour. Although the squall lasted only a few minutes, its impact was extensive. Wind gusts broke large trees, and some were uprooted entirely, disrupting transport and forcing the closure of nearly all city parks. In the city's coastal area, the wind shattered glass facades and damaged building structures. Patrons at one cafe panicked and sought shelter as the squall raged inside the establishment. Vessels suffered significant damage, with many being stranded ashore. At Democritus Airport, 3 training aircraft were damaged by the gusty winds. The phenomenon was caused by powerful downdrafts from the thunderstorm front, known as a microburst. Experts noted that it was a localized event and extremely difficult to predict. Starting January 20th, Europe was hit by another powerful storm, the Mediterranean cyclone Harry. It swept across southern regions of Italy, including mainland Calabria and the islands of Sicily and Sardinia. Widespread flooding, landslides, and destruction were recorded not only in coastal areas, but also inland. Streets, vehicles, and ground floors of buildings were submerged, and evacuations were carried out using boats. The hardest-hit cities were Catania in Sicily and Catanzaro in Calabria, where flooding and infrastructure damage were the most severe. Preliminary estimates indicate that the damage from the storm in Sicily alone exceeded €1 billion. The storm generated waves up to 10 meters, 33 feet, high along the Ionian coast. They destroyed promenades, caused severe damage to ports, sank fishing vessels, and washed away a section of the coastal road in the municipality of Santa Teresa di Riva. In the Strait of Sicily, a giant wave measuring 16 meters, 52 feet high, was recorded, the highest ever observed in the history of the Mediterranean Sea. The storm was marked by an extreme amount of rainfall. In the municipality of San Sostene, nearly 570 millimeters of rain fell over 3 days, exceeding the 6-month average and triggering floods and landslides. Ferry services to the smaller islands were almost completely suspended, and some communities became isolated. In Malta, the cyclone caused severe transport disruptions and damage in coastal areas, particularly in the southern part of the island. Solar activity. On January 18th, specialists recorded an X1.9 class solar flare, one of the most powerful according to the standard classification. This event was accompanied by a coronal mass ejection, a cloud of charged plasma and magnetic fields directed toward our planet. The ejection reached Earth's magnetosphere on January 19th and triggered a powerful geomagnetic storm. According to the Space Weather Prediction Center, its intensity corresponded to G4, the 4th level on a 5-tier scale. Storms of this intensity can disrupt satellite operations and radio communications, degrade navigation, increase atmospheric drag on spacecraft in low Earth orbit, and cause overloads in power grids. At the same time, specialists recorded an S4-level solar radiation storm, one of the rarest and most powerful episodes of the 21st century. Radiation storms are particularly hazardous for satellite electronics, astronauts, and flights along polar routes. Experts note that the simultaneous occurrence of such extreme solar activity is extremely rare. One of the most striking consequences of the geomagnetic storm was the auroras, which were visible for 2 nights in the northern hemisphere at latitudes far south of their usual range. Reports of the auroras came from Europe, including France, Spain, and southern Portugal, as well as from the central states of the United States. The simultaneous occurrence of such extreme solar activity is considered one of the rarest events. South America.
Buenas noches, las noticias del clima de hoy traen un verano.
At the beginning of January in South America, where it is currently summer, the weather suddenly seemed to turn upside down. In southern Brazil, where it is usually hot at this time of year, abnormally cold conditions set in starting January 4th. In 70 cities in the state of Rio Grande do Sul, minimum temperatures dropped below 10 degrees Celsius, 50 degrees Fahrenheit. In the area of Campos de Cima de Serra, temperatures fell to plus 1.5 degrees Celsius, 35 degrees Fahrenheit, and the landscape was covered in frost, which is completely unusual for the summer season. At the same time, Chile experienced abnormal heat, with temperatures reaching 42 degrees Celsius, 107.5 degrees Fahrenheit. A combination of intense heat, gusty winds, and a decade-long drought triggered massive wildfires. On January 16th, just a few hours after the fire began spreading rapidly, thousands of people in the Biobío and Ñuble regions were forced to evacuate. The situation became critical in the municipality of Penco. Around 2:30 a.m., the fire got out of control. A firestorm consumed residential houses, and the blaze reached the sea, a phenomenon locals claimed had never occurred before. More than 50,000 people were evacuated, with over 1,000 taking refuge in temporary shelters. One eyewitness reported that, due to the highly toxic smoke, people had to flee their homes in whatever they were wearing, taking nothing with them. Had they stayed even 20 minutes longer, they could have perished, burned alive. However, some refused to leave, choosing to stay and protect their property. For some, this decision proved fatal. In this region, people live in tight-knit communities and know each other well, so every loss is felt particularly acutely. 20 people died in the fires. The strategically important coastal town of Lirken was also affected, a major regional port and key transport hub connecting Greater Concepcion with the rest of Biobío. The wildfire destroyed over 50,000 hectares of forests, farmland, and plantations, and around 2,000 buildings were either completely or partially destroyed. This fire season is notable for the unprecedented area burned, which has nearly tripled, even though the number of fires remains within normal ranges or even below average. This means that even a smaller number of fires can cause significantly greater damage, and this trend is increasingly being observed worldwide during wildfire seasons. On January 12th, a powerful wave up to 5 meters high suddenly struck the Atlantic coast of Buenos Aires province in Argentina. The sea, which had been completely calm just moments before, suddenly receded for several minutes and then struck the shore with tremendous force. At the time, beaches were overcrowded due to the intense heat. The wave swept away swimmers and washed away beach equipment, umbrellas, lounge chairs, and tents. Lifeguards were physically unable to assist everyone in danger. In the city of Santa Clara del Mar, the wave threw a man onto the rocks, and he died. In total, 35 people were injured in the incident. Experts classified this event as a meteotsunami, a rapid, abnormal change in sea level that resembles a tsunami but occurs without earthquakes, triggered instead by atmospheric factors such as sudden pressure changes, strong storms, or fast-moving cold fronts over the ocean. For example, at the port of Mar del Plata, a sharp drop in sea level of 45 centimeters was first recorded, followed by a rise of nearly 90 centimeters. It is worth noting that meteotsunamis are extremely difficult to predict, which makes them particularly dangerous. Australia. On January 15th, more than 175 millimeters of rain fell in just 6 hours in southwestern Victoria, triggering a sudden flash flood. On Mount Cowley, over 180 millimeters was recorded, a new daily record. Rivers overflowed almost instantly, and raging torrents swept away vehicles, with dozens of cars carried straight into the ocean. People in coastal towns were trapped. Around 400 residents and tourists were evacuated from low-lying areas and campsites, and 2 men had to be rescued by air. Notably, emergency flood SMS alerts were delayed, arriving 30 minutes after the evacuation had already been completed. According to rescue services, they had never encountered such a volume of rainfall before. Flooding, landslides, and severe damage to road surfaces led to the closure of one of the region's major tourist attractions, the Great Ocean Road. According to local residents, this flood was the most powerful in the region's history and caught them completely off guard. Just a week earlier, bushfires had raged here, and evacuation plans had been designed to protect against fire, not the rapidly incoming floodwaters. DR Congo. On January 13th, prolonged heavy rains in North Kivu province triggered a massive landslide. The disaster caught residents off guard, occurring at night while most were asleep. Streams of mud and rock debris swept through the village, destroying everything in their path. Dozens of homes were completely destroyed or buried under the rubble. The landslide also blocked a section of a road that is crucial for supplying the region, severely hampering rescue operations and the delivery of aid to those affected. 28 people were killed, 20 were injured, and dozens of families were left homeless. In the past, sudden changes in weather occurred within familiar patterns. For For example, rainfall could trigger a flash flood, but the processes themselves remained largely predictable. Today, these patterns are breaking down, and scenarios no longer match expectations. Consider this. In Australia, fires were expected, but floods came. In Argentina, a beach holiday turned into a strike by an abnormal wave. In Kamchatka, people prepared for a typical winter storm, only to find themselves trapped under snow for several days. Even in Brazil, during the summer season, winter-like cold suddenly set in. These are no longer isolated anomalies. This is a new, persistent trend. Now, ordinary weather can turn into an emergency within hours, even minutes, leaving people no chance to prepare. The problem isn't forecast errors, it's that climatic processes are now unfolding outside of familiar scenarios, and so rapidly that meteorologists cannot even assess them in time. Humanity is facing difficult times. Rational people no longer hold illusions that natural disasters will stop on their own. Without conscious systemic action, their scale and destructive power will only grow. Right now, humanity has the opportunity to eliminate one of the key factors that not only intensifies natural disasters, but also poses a threat to life on the planet: micro and nanoplastics. Finding a way to neutralize their electrostatic charge is a real tool today for slowing the escalating extreme processes. Every day of inaction is a lost opportunity and lives put at risk. For this reason, now more than ever, the choices, honesty, and actions of every individual matter. It is time to create all the conditions necessary for the survival of humanity.